of Sacros TV. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to Regnum Continuous Legal Education. Yeah, some people will be wondering, yeah, it's evening now, why is she greeting us good morning? Anyways, we also have a lot of viewers from different parts of the world that are joining us at this moment, and their time zone, of course, is different from ours here in Nigeria. So I welcome you all to Regnum Continuous Legal Education, where we discuss and focus more on legal matters. Apart from the other religious and entertaining programs we have, this is another platform where we talk about interesting topics that affect you and I as individuals and as citizens of our own country, Nigeria specifically, and maybe some African countries because we don't know. I think it's almost the same thing with that of the Western world. But here in Nigeria, this is how we run our own legal matters. And we have, of course, professional legal practitioners that are already here, as always, joining us every Friday to talk about the legal matters, things that affect you and I as a person. So tell a friend to tell a friend that Starpros TV is live and we are ready to discuss your legal issues that you don't know how to solve. So this is the program for you. If you have any question you want to ask as the program proceeds, please do so by going through our YouTube to send your messages, send your questions, suggestion, whatever it is that you want to know concerning the topic of discuss today. Do so to send us those messages via our YouTube. So before we go into the main program proper, permit me as I introduce myself as your host for tonight, Joy Dambo. And of course I have the guests here in the studio, the legal officers who will do justice to our topic of discuss today. Don't forget where we stopped last week or 2 weeks ago. We are here again to continue from where we stopped. But before I introduce the topic, let me welcome our guest here in the studio. Good evening, Barrister Kenneth Itorobasi.
Good evening, viewers. Good evening, presenter. Welcome to another edition.
Thank you. You're looking happy, even if you're not smiling. I know today you're excited. Because we always have Barrister Kenneth and Barrister Osim. Today we have a lady sitting beside him. So I believe that joy should, And of course, she's sitting pretty. Join me as I welcome Barrister Emenemini Manasseh. Good evening, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening once again. Good evening, everyone out there watching us, and welcome to another edition of the program. Thank you.
Ooh, I'm impressed. All right, yeah, last week or 2 weeks ago we had her on Zoom, and right now she is here present in the studio. It's nice having you here. You're welcome once again.
Thank you very much. And you're not looking bad. You're looking so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Do you know that the men usually don't compliment you? Do you know? Barrister Kenneth is looking at me, but yeah, thank you so much. That, has given me more confidence. So, let me sit up well. So, Barrister Kenneth, next time when you come, you need to, put on that.
I will, but I hope it will not.
No, don't mind me, I'm joking. All right, beloved audience, yes, at least let's start off with a little smile before we go into the serious aspects. Because it's always like very, very serious all the time. But when I'm here, I always like to put small smiles, on the guests' faces and of course on your face. So join us as I introduce our topic of discourse is a continuity of what we had 2 weeks ago, and we are just going to continue from where we stopped. We have been talking about violence. We treated workplace violence, how to cope workplace violence, and now we are going into domestic violence. So now, workplace violence is actually different from domestic violence. So we've been talking about domestic violence last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, and today we want to continue. Our topic of discuss tonight is curbing domestic violence and the restoration of family values. Now, I know you'll be wondering, too long like that. Well, we are talking about domestic violence and as well family value, how to restore the family values, the values in our families that have been taken out, due to some domestic matters. So this program will put us in the right path and how we can restore those values back. So now let's go into the discussion of the day. But before we do that, don't be in a hurry. Chill, chill. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue. We'll bring out the cats from the basket. Don't go away. We shall be right back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying on. In case you're just joining us or you just tuned on your TV now, you are watching Regnum Continuous Legal Education, and here Regnum, we're talking about legal matters. I promise you that when we come back, we'll continue from where we stopped. And today we are talking about curbing domestic violence and restoration of family values. So now, from the previous discussion we had 2 weeks ago, we were actually, running out of time, so we are unable to exhaust most of the causes that, brings up this domestic violence in our lives as individuals, or as in the society, wherever. But this one, we are being focused on domestic violence. I think last time we defined domestic violence as the violence that's occurred between relative or close partner, or somebody that you're kind of sharing a relationship with. So that is how they describe it. I'm a good student, so yes. So, but just in case I'm not correct, that's why they are here. They will still put us in line with what domestic violence is. But before that, let's not prolong the whole thing because we're working with time. So let's just go straight into the causes. Barrister Kenneth was actually sharing out the causes of domestic violence. There are so many of them, so we couldn't exhaust it last 2 weeks. So today he's going to read out all the causes of domestic violence. So Barrister Kenneth.
Yes, thank you very much. Yours. Yeah. Last 2 weeks, I think precisely on the 7th of October, when we came, we looked at some causes of, predominantly we looked at not seeking the face of God before going to any serious relationship, and then the lack of proper courtship. Those were the two main causes.
You mentioned, yes.
Now today we'll continue with frustration.
Okay.
Frustration normally causes domestic violence, and then we could give a good example.
Okay.
There are some people that come into this world, they are into negative choices. The whole of their life are on negative choices. They put these negative choices up. Sometimes they refuse to go to school, they refuse to learn trade, and then by the time they go, maybe they feel they are beautiful. Maybe if she's a woman or a man, handsome man, and then you feel they are beautiful, but later they realize that this beauty or handsomeness will not pay bills.
Of course.
So it leads to frustration. Sometimes if it's a lady, she was involved in abortion, she will get pregnant and get it out. And then maybe later in life she does not have the ability to give birth to a child. And so in the family now, she is now married, and the man is saying, I want a child. And then when she cannot give, it becomes a source of frustration. Now, let us look at the provisions, what 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 14 is saying. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 14 has something to tell the youth, especially the women. Say, when you are young, get married, settle down, and take care of your home. That is the time when you are a young woman. Don't be a slave queen when you are young. Settle down on that, unless if you are on an assignment by God, like we spoke about the reverend sisters and the children of God who are directly serving God. If you are not part of that, dear sister, when you are in your prime, between the ages of 20 and 25, get married and build your home. That is the time, not the time for slave queen. Now we look at the exposure to violent media, and now we also looked at the exposure to violence in the home or in the neighborhood. We looked at child abuse and molestation. That child will grow up to become a violent person. Okay. We also looked at separation and divorce. When we talk about separation, we are talking about a situation when the husband and wife are not living under the same roof for a period of 12 months, which is 1 year. The law clearly states that if both parties are not living under the same roof for 1 year, then it is a ground for divorce. So please, do not, as a married woman or married man, immediately you have a problem, you run out of your marital home to go and live somewhere. Once you have stayed for 1 year and the other party approaches the court, and the court establishes the fact that you have been out of that roof for 1 year, it is enough ground for divorce under the Marriage Act. Okay. Now we looked at personal stress, which we said after a short while it will go away. For instance, somebody got somebody angry and then he came back home and the husband is shouting, "Where is my food?" You know, you can give it to him. But maybe later we'll come and say, "I'm sorry, look at what happened." Then we looked at financial stress. We looked at alcoholism and drug abuse. When you drink and then every night your family will come and remove you from the gutter. You know, there are some people like that.
Of course.
They drink and then they take drugs and then every day they will have to come and take them in chains. And then you are a child of God. You understand? What does the Bible say about being a bishop? When you look at Timothy, you will see that it says that you must be in control of your home, a husband of one wife, and not given to wine, drives drunkenness. Yes. And then we looked at violent culture. Okay. Under violent culture, we discussed where the culture of that place is not in tandem, is not conducive, you know, for people from the other clans, from the other community to marry in that community, because everybody is afraid of the violent, maybe it's a masquerade or something, the way they normally play it, cut people and all that, and so everybody is afraid. We also talked about gender differences. The Bible is very clear that the woman is a weaker vessel. And so we the men, we have to encourage them. You understand? Yeah. Now, if we want to give an example, when Jesus was about to be born, the angel approached Mary. You understand? The way she approached Mary is not the way he approached Zachariah when when John the Baptist was to be born. In fact, in the case of Zachariah, because he asked question, he said you will not even be able to speak or hear until that child is born. But in the case of Mary, you understand, she was petted and, you know, made to realize that God has favored her. Yeah. So when you are dealing with a woman, you should be a little more soft. Now we talked about being hurt with by an intimate partner. This one has to do with single parents. If you are going into a relationship with a single parent, you should realize that that person is already a broken person. Okay. It's either the husband or the wife died or they are separated. You understand? And now this person is left to care for the children alone or the child alone. So when you are going into a relationship with that kind of person, you should realize that extra care must be taken. You understand? Those people need therapy. Most times it is not love they are looking for. Again, they are looking for somebody that will mend their hearts. Yeah. We now talked about mental illness, including anxiety and depression, that it can bring violence in the home when the person is always not, you know, consistent. The person is always showing signs of mental illness. We talked about low self-esteem and personality disorder. What we talked about station in life is very important, the station in life in that person. See, when we talked about literacy, because let's take it below education and income. Yeah. When we talk about the illiteracy is not having gone for Western education. Yeah. And I can give a good example. You realize that those days, somebody used mud to build upstairs. It's mud, throw mud, they build an upstairs. That person is not an illiterate. When we talk about illiteracy, we are talking about their low self-esteem. You understand? And it brings insecurity. The person is always insecure. You understand? Maybe the husband is a degree holder, and maybe she's a school certificate holder, and whenever she sees the husband, maybe relating with fellow degree holders. You understand? She's always feeling, this person is going to dump me to go and marry somebody in her class. That is low self-esteem. And that breeds illiteracy. And that breeds insecurity. Because you are always seeing yourself below the belt. That you don't measure up. And as a result of that, you make a lot of mistakes. It will bring violence in the home. Because if your husband is out there looking for business or money, sometimes you may misconstrue his action and think that maybe he's going after a woman, or maybe because you are not a graduate, that is why he's now going to talk to a graduate. You know those kind of things. So it breeds violence in the home. Then there's juvenile delinquency. Under juvenile delinquency, we are looking at a situation where the child is in the teenage bracket, and then by that time they normally exhibit signs of violence. You have to be patient with them at that time. Anger and hostility was also talked about. Barbaric culture and belief systems was also discussed. We talked about experiencing childhood trauma, and then we spoke about witnessing violence as a child. Now, of importance is infidelity. Once you have gone into a marriage contract, you should stick to your partner. Now we look at 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1 to 12. I will urge our viewers to read that by themselves. Another point of violence in the home is lack of proper communication between parties.
Okay.
And I want to go straight to give an example of the recent killing of a wife by the husband. The husband accused the wife of having the pregnancy outside the home. But each time the man asks her, how did you become pregnant? She will keep quiet and not say anything. But will run away. She won't say anything. She will rather run away. So the man kept asking her that they said that she's keeping a man within the neighborhood and that he is not sure is the owner of this pregnancy. But each time she will keep quiet and not answer anything. But if the man just wants to get up, she will run away. Not knowing that the man had prepared machete and kept that day. So by the time she wanted to run away, the man hacked her to death with the pregnancy. And the man has now been sentenced to death. Now, if there was proper communication between these two people, no, what they are saying is a lie. You are the father of this child. Or on the other hand, no, you are not the father of this child, and she leaves the matrimonial home. She will not have died. Yeah. This other man will not have been sentenced to death, to also die. But because she wanted to stay in that matrimonial home, whether or not it is true that she got the pregnancy from outside, that lack of proper communication caused the death of two people. So we should always communicate properly in the relationship. Another point is idleness. And the Bible is very clear in Thessalonica, 2 Timothy, that who will not work should not eat. So when you don't work, 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 13 is of the same view. If you don't want to work, do not expect any food. Now we looked at Proverbs chapter 31 for the qualities of a good wife. And then we look at the negative influence of parents and the extended family on the nuclear family. You will find out that some people, they give out their child for marriage. But the mother-in-law, that is the mother-in-law now, will leave her own matrimonial home and come and live with these new people and start training the daughter what not to do. It's not your duty to sweep. It's not your duty to wash the plate. Are you a housemaid? You see some of them, they do that. I have personally witnessed it. They come there and sit down and start directing the woman on what to do. It breeds violence in the home. My dear, when you have given out your daughter for marriage, when you have given up your son for marriage, you see the mother of the man coming to say, child, this woman will kill my son. Look at the kind of oporoko she put in the soup. Look at the kind of meat. She left her own matrimonial home. She now comes to the daughter's house. She now comes to the son's house to be directing. Some of them will even tell the son-in-law, see your brother-in-law, he's not doing anything. Buy keke, buy bike, buy motor. Let him send him to school. If it was that possible, easy, why didn't you, the mother and the father, send him? Why did you wait for son-in-law to come before you could now come and know their son should go to school? So all this brings problem in the home, because sometimes you look at the son-in-law, it's even a younger person to her own or his own son that he wants this person to come and train. So please, when you give up your son or your daughter for marriage, stay away from that home so that you don't go and cause problem there. Another point is lack of submission of the wife and lack of love by the husband. We all know what Ephesians chapter 5 says when it comes to, and then Genesis chapter 3 verse 16 is what it says. It says that the desire of the wife should be to the husband. And then Ephesians chapter 5 clearly states that the wife should submit and then the husband should love. Okay. Yes, love is the care that is expected of the husband, while respect is the submission. So those are two roles. For the man, respect is love. For the woman, care is love. So by the time you respect, you have submitted. So that was on that point. And now let us now look at the 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8, which says that if any man cannot provide for his own, specifically for those of his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So man, God said when it is morning time, go and dig the ground, go and till the soil and bring food. It's not time to play drafts and then discuss with your friends till night and then you go and beat your wife to give you food. Your wife is not food. She also wants to eat. God says that, but in Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, it says, it is from the sweat or the toil of your face as a man that you will eat. For the woman, what they told the woman was that it is at childbirth. You understand? That it is at childbirth that you will sweat. But for the man, you were to toil and bring food home. And now the Bible has supported that by saying that if you do not provide for your household, you are worse than, and you have denied the faith. That means you are no longer a Christian. So when it is morning, even if it is to carry blocks, go and carry. Bring that small money to the home so that your family can feed. That is what is expected of you. Now there is domination, hierarchy and domination, male dominance in the family. And then strict gender roles. It's not my duty to carry the feces of the child. It's not my duty to wash plate. You see your wife is struggling with 4 children. You are expected to help her. Maybe if this to boil water to the bathing of the children. You say, no, it's not my job. It's her job, let her do it. No. We are now saying that this will bring violence because this is a weaker vessel we are talking about. She will break down so easily. Another point is being verbally abusive and nagging. And we see that in Proverbs chapter 21 verse 9. Now, unemployment and economic stress is another point. Emotional instability is another point. Desire for power and control in relationship. And I want to say that with, we are almost getting done. Yeah, I want to say that with an example. There is a good example I want to give. There was a man. He was not that literate, but he was very rich. And so the man went to an occasion and donated 10 bags of rice. So she now took the microphone and informed the audience that he has donated 10 bags of rice. And the wife that was sitting down said, no, add S. The man did not understand. He called and said, add S. You didn't add S. So the man took back the microphone. People did not know the man was not that literate. But because he wanted to obey the wife, he now took back the microphone and now said, I have donated 10 bags S of rice. That was when people now know that, this man is not that educated. Please, wives, don't want to be too dominant. You understand? So many women have the view that the man is the head of the family, I am the neck. Anywhere the neck will turn the head, that is where it will go. No. At the end of the day, you find out that most of such men end up being regarded lowly in the society. Because in the process of you wanting to ensure that that man does what you expect him to do, he might make mistakes. Those mistakes will have been done at home before coming out. But when it is done in public, it becomes a source of violence. Now, introversion and isolation from people, pure behavioral control and impulsiveness is another ground. Antisocial personality traits and lack of non-violent problem skills. There are people that can't solve problems. You give them a little stress, they will back up. It causes violence in the home. Another point is hunger. There's the saying that the hungry man is an angry man. Now, sexual starvation, denial, and deprivation is another point, and it's very important. After a man is married, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3 to 5 is very clear that your body is not your own again. The body of the wife is that of the husband. The body of the husband is that of the wife. You realize that some women, just for a little misunderstanding, they will now use the bed to punish the other party. You go and touch them, they will beat your hand, get out, simply because there was a little disagreement over, maybe give me money for my hair. And the man says, there's no money, I'll give you next week. Throw out that week, they won't allow. The Bible is saying, no, that is wrong and it brings violence in the home. Now, another point is introducing strangers and divulging secrets to third parties like friends and family members. Let us remember that 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 33 says that evil communication corrupts good manners. By the time you take a secret between you and your wife and your husband and leak it out, it can bring death to that family. let's assume that your husband won a contract at 50 million and they paid 30 million, and you immediately call your friend who you were primary school mates and say, no, my husband have just won a contract, they have paid 30 million. You say, where is the money? He said, we have withdrawn the money, in the house. And you think you will sleep that night? People will come to collect that 30 million. And it might be people you know. So in the process, somebody can get shot, somebody can die in the process. Yeah. And that is a source of violence. So now, relating with friends, relating with friends and family members without the principles of fairness and fear of God is, maybe let's talk about that as the last. You see, at the end of the day, there are some people, you see them by the time they bring maybe a housemaid to the house, you see that, oh, every house call, they relate with this person, especially if they are paying them a little stipend. If you see their children and the housemaid, you see the marked difference. You just know this one, a house girl, a house boy, because of the way he's being treated. If we are saying that will breed a kind of violence, and the violence it will breed is that boy that you call, that girl that you call house girl, can end up being the president tomorrow. And this person will have been kept in your house by God so that tomorrow it will favor your family. And instead, remember what happened to David and Jonathan and Saul. And instead, this person will become a source. He say, I am going to repay them with what they did to me when I was in their house. So, dear Christian brethren, let us relate with our friends and family members with the principles of fairness and the fear of God. So those are some of the causes. For the sake of time, we'll have elaborated more.
Oh, it's not all.
But let us stop there.
Yes,
there are some of the causes,
please.
But let us stop there. Let us stop there for today.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. That was a very, elaborating explanation about the causes of domestic violence. Thank you so much for that explanation.
Yes.
I think you have taken all your time for today.
Yes.
The rest time we'll go for sister. Okay, yeah, so let's go into, now every domestic violence comes up or has a consequence or has whatever it is, or feedback or whatever it is we call it. Every act you do definitely has a reward.
Exactly.
So now I would like to know each of these consequences. I may not specifically state all of them like you said, but each of them we believe that has consequences. So what are the consequences of every domestic violence?
Okay, thank you very much. I must start by saying, commending my colleague. He spoke very well.
Of course.
And then I would also add by saying that biblically, it is stated that a man, that's vice versa, a man or a woman, would leave his father and mother and cling to the wife or to the woman. That's the other way around to suffices.
Yeah.
And they both will become one. And then same Bible also states in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, if you read down as he rightly stated, it is stated categorically that a man should love his wife, and then the wife should submit to the husband.
Yeah.
But then you realize that the world of today, most men has refused to put that biblical rules into consideration and making it a reality. And also it goes to the woman, I must say, because even God himself knew very well that he has deposited this love outrightly in a woman. And that is why he just said, women submit whilst a man should love. I'll go to the basic question, but I have to lay a foundation. So then you look at what exactly is the sole essence of marriage. God created marriage with a reason, that we should live in love, unity, oneness, harmony, so to speak. Just to mention a few. But it appears that the purpose within which marriage was created has been defeated. But to me, if you ask me, has it really been defeated? To God, it hasn't, because he had a reason for creating marriage. But to human, I think we have decided to sabotage the sole essence of marriage, that union called marriage. So when these things arises, it obviously causes domestic violence. And once there is domestic violence, there is issues of consequences. And then consequences wouldn't just have an effect on the victim. It will have an effect on the victim. It will as well have an effect on the community, and it will also have an effect on the government. So let's start with looking at the effect this would have on the victim as an individual.
Yeah.
So basically this would increase depression, incidences of depression and anxiety. Because when you look at domestic violence, it deals with a person, a body, which this can arises emotionally, physically, and otherwise, however, psychologically, most importantly. And when it comes to psychology, it deals with your emotions, it deals with everything about you. So sometimes it might affect the way you think, the way you talk, the way you act, the way you deal with people, the way you even react in the house.
Definitely change
Exactly,
you as a
it will
person.
change you outrightly as a person, and which will make you behave in a certain manner. People will be wondering if you are, if gone not,
Mentally
you are
okay.
mentally okay, and all of that. So basically, depression and anxiety, it goes into the mental state of your mind. It has to do with an unpleasant mental state of uneasiness, because you wouldn't be able to do things as a normal human being would do. Sometimes you can sit here, as we sit here, if I'm probably suffering, God forbid, suffering from such situation, I will sit here and you're talking to me, you'll be like, Barrister, amen, are you there with me? I'm talking to you, and
You're
your
not
mind is already
listening.
gone off. You'll be like, what is going on? Something must be wrong. Because as well as human, you are observing. You can see, you notice, and all of that. And then it will take the grace of God for you to ask, is everything okay? And then that is when I'll be like, my sister, everything is not okay. This is what I'm passing through. So basically, it will
Sometimes
affect.
you can even hide it by saying, I am okay.
Exactly,
And you're
sometimes
dying in
and
pain.
you're dying in pains. Like personally, me, I'm very outspoken. If such a situation come up, I will tell you already that I am not fine, sister. This is the situation. Because sometimes you need to speak out. You need to speak out. You cannot die in silence, because these are most of the things we women faces out there. We don't speak. I have come across this incident.
Men also face this.
Men also face the same thing, but my dear, women.
Before Barrister Kennedy to say we have been biased here.
No, but women faces it more. If you look at the previous studies, it has it that women faces these things more.
The domestic violence
Exactly,
is basically on
it's
women.
basically on the women. So you would realize that some of them are unable to speak. Like I said, I have come across this incident that occurred to a friend, and we tried as much as we could to make her spill that, but unfortunately she couldn't. She had to, some of them will be like, I want to protect my marriage. Sometimes when they see probably you're not married, they'll be like, you want to talk us out of it. No, but that is not the issue. Sometimes when issues arises, try to deal with it internally. And if the internal measures are not working, has been exhausted, then you take steps to try the external measures. And if the external measures are not still working, then my dear, the clear advice is to walk out. You cannot die in there. Of course, as well, God said we should love, we should operate in love and live in love. But then again, we have to also understand the fact that we must live to continue showing this love out there. This love is not just restricted to a husband, or neither this love is just restricted to the wife as a man. This love is supposed to be extended. And if eventually you are dead, how do you extend the love? Because a dead man cannot stand in court to face trial. You need to be alive to be able to face trial. If I must bring that in. So you need to be alive to, extend this love out there. So the second point we want to make is post-traumatic stress. It still also has something to do with the depression and anxiety, because you will be distressed. You will be so tired. You can't do anything emotionally, physically, psychologically, and otherwise. You will be totally frustrated. It will show from head to toe. You can't do anything. Sometimes you find it difficult to go to work. Even if you are at work, you can't act. You can't function well, and all of that. So these are the basic consequences it has to do on the person on the victim personally. And then the next point we'll look at is increased risk of cardiovascular diseases. This has to do with disease of the heart. Yes. For instance, now when
blood pressure,
thank you, hypertension. Hypertension. You can think and think and think until your mind is blown out. Yes, there are situations like that. Hypertension, like he rightly stated.
So basically only domestic violence can get you to this level,
of course.
Any other thing can move you there.
domestic violence is
It's the highest.
is the highest, exactly. Because once it's like, well, I shouldn't use you for as an example, but I must tell you, people, women out there have had an opportunity
Actually,
to talk.
it affects you from your workplace to the
Exactly.
school,
to the
church.
to the church.
There's no
to
way it doesn't
any-
affect you.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, it might lead to increased blood pressure,
Exactly.
which might terminate your life
Exactly.
much younger than you had expected.
Exactly.
Because once you don't have peace in the home, in fact, you find out that even the child of that home cannot pass exam well. It affects a lot of things.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
So, and it's something that is, if it, for instance, is a consistent something, like the violence is consistent, this will have a real high effect, basically, with respect to the hypertension. Because sometimes you go to the hospital to check yourself and the doctor is like, your blood pressure has gone up. What exactly is going on? Trying to find out exactly what is going on in your home. But when you do save yourself the stress, the harm of speaking out, then you have the opportunity of being advised to take these measures before you finally walk out. Because once it happens, you don't just wake up, boom, and say you are stepping out. You have to follow these necessary measures that have been put in place before you take steps to move out of the marriage or relationship, whatsoever it is. And then also we are looking at the premature mortality. This also simply means premature death.
Okay.
Yes, so it will cut your life short. That is basically it, and I think we've addressed that already. And then it also has to do, the consequences also has to deal with emotional stress and sleep disturbances. Like we also stated, from the very first point, that you'll be distressed, you can't sleep. Sometimes you just sleep and you hear something fall on the top of your roof, you wake up and someone wants to come and beat you up. And all of that. But my dear, nobody is coming to beat you up. It's your mindset. The whole thing has gone into your mindset, your mentality, your thinking faculty. You are not just thinking straight. You're not doing things rightly as a normal and a sane human being would do. So then we also move to mental health disorder. It is also the same thing we spoke about. And for children, it may also lead to learning disorders. Like Barrister Kenneth rightly states, the child wouldn't be able to do anything. Even in school, sometimes the teacher will be like, this child is not okay. Because they observe children. As a teacher, if you're not able to observe your student, then probably you're not a good teacher. Because as a teacher, you're not just in there to teach them, you are there to as well observe what is going on. So with respect to it, it can basically have an effect on how they read. Because if a child brings out his or her book and sits to start studying, and then the parents are beating up the wife, or the wife beating the husband and all of that, the child can't even concentrate to do whatever he or she has to do. And this also results in a negative effect of that child. And then we also look at the poor language skills. The child wouldn't be able to coin or construct a very good English. He or she wouldn't have a very good command of English on how he or she speaks. Because all these things, once the child lose out, then obviously
lost focus.
Yes, lose focus, and then is not even going to school is as worse as just sitting at home, because it is of course exactly. So that's basically it. And then also cognitive development, developmental delay, eating disorders, and physical ailments. Diseases and all of that. So we can also look at heartbreaks, separation or divorce with attendant vices, which Barrister Kenneth had, already addressed, so we wouldn't have to waste our time on that. And then engagement in violent crimes. This basically too would lead to engagement in violent crimes. Going in to commit all sort of atrocities. Because when your husband is not, or maybe your wife is not making you have this comfort in your home, there's every likelihood for you to step out and go and do whatever that comes to your mind to exactly. So then, the next point as well is pressure. Okay, so before we go into the pressure on the government, we told you from the initial stage that it has consequences not just on the victim, but on the community as well as the government. So with respect to the victim, I think we've addressed that. And then when it comes to the community, obviously someone is going to jail for it. Because you cannot just abuse someone, kick someone, beat someone, do whatever you like with the person and walk away. if it is someone who speak out, obviously he or she is going to report you.
Yeah.
And once the incident is being reported, just expect that the police is going to
Get
come
involved.
after you. Exactly. So the police is definitely going to get involved, and once the police is involved, you're going to address the whole thing in the police custody, because that's where they are going to take you to. And once you get there, they'll take your statements and all of that. So basically what we are saying is, and not just would it end in the police station, you can be charged to court as well. Exactly. So when these things arises, someone definitely is going to prison for it, because once the judgment is being given and the judge sits on your case, and judgment is being given and you are convicted, obviously the road leads to the prison at the end of the day. So when it also comes with the consequences on the government, pressure, how do you give government pressure, or how would it amount to pressure on the government? So basically, let's say that domestic violence brings about a multi-dimensional effect on women, basically when it comes to health factors. Now, you see that it could be in a short term, it could also be in a long term. In a short term, in that a woman can go to work, she's not able to work, up to the certain number of hours she's supposed to work. And when, you're not working as expected within the length of time or the duration of hours that you're getting, what happens? You're likely going to be less productive, of course. And then when you are less productive, what happens? That job will not be carried out. So then, that is basically that for the short term. And when it comes to the long term, the same issue too. There will be a decrement in a workforce for a woman. There will be a decrement of a woman in the workforce. So basically, we will not have much women in the working sector. And then there will also be, a minimization of skills acquisition and education. Because as she's already less productive, what is she going to bring on the table? And when that happens, you hear of this woman. Of course, if you are a CEO of a company, what do you think you would do? You relieve her of her duties. Because if she's not productive, then obviously you are sending her home, because you want your company to grow. And if you have someone who is not able to inject into your company or into the system in order, because the sole essence of establishing a company is to make profit. And if you're not able to make the profit, what happens? You have to relieve her of her duties and bring someone in who is in the right state of mind, is in the right mental state to do the work, so that at the end of the day your company keeps on going concern and grow at the end of the day. So when these issues arises, the woman obviously is going to have disease issues, sicknesses here and there, and she would land in the hospital. And once she lands in the hospital, the resources for public investment that is supposed to be channeled for investment in the public, in the government, in the national sector, would now be channeled to the health sector, just to ensure that these people that are there exactly are actually cured, and ensure that they are right back in their senses. So this is basically what I have to add to the consequences of domestic violence. Thank you very
that
much.
was very brilliant. Thank you so much, Barrister Kenneth and Barrister Emenimini. That's a wonderful one. This is like, I don't know, they've given us like full details of causes and consequences. Everything that has a beginning has an end, so they've been able to state the causes and also giving us the consequences of each of our actions.
There is another consequence which has not been taken into consideration. If you could give me a minute.
Okay.
You see, when this problem arises, maybe between the man and the wife at home, and then they fight, maybe eventually some other person uses something to hit the other partner. Maybe the other partner falls and then doesn't get up again. You know what I mean? What we call the premature mortality or death. You realize that the effect on the children is something else. Because if those children, for instance, were going to private school, they may now have to relocate to their uncle and aunties. And by the time they get to their uncle and aunties, the uncle and aunties will say, look, we don't have money to send you to private school. You go to public school. And look, we don't have money to buy mattress and foam for you to sleep. You sleep on the mat in the floor. And sorry, if your father used to give you 3 times a meal and then maybe snacks in between, you will now only eat in the morning and go to school and eat late at night and sleep.
Okay.
And then if you have malaria or typhoid fever, you have to go into the bush and gather herbs and come and drink.
Instead of going
There
to
is
the
no
hospital.
money for hospital or for drugs.
Okay.
So eventually, like she's rightly pointed out, domestic violence will eventually have serious effect on the children. And then, like she rightly said, even if these children try to cope up, you find out that by the time they are in the group of people, they don't have anything to say about mommy and daddy. When other children are speaking of how mommy and daddy, what they did this and did that, they don't have anything. So it will lead to isolation. They will always want to absent themselves because financially they cannot meet up with other children. Socially they don't meet up. So they will always want to isolate themselves from the going on in the society. And this will pedal them into another step of the domestic violence when they eventually get to that level, unless it's God Almighty that steps in. Now another thing that we have to talk about is that person that you are saying is your best friend, that you have to tell all your secrets to, eventually when the problem hits, you understand, you may realize that even to take care of your children for 2 hours, she will tell you she doesn't have time. He himself will also tell you he doesn't have time. 2 hours. This is the cause of that problem, that domestic violence. Maybe as a result of telling you, look at you, see your husband there with another woman, and you ran out and had problem. And then the problem has now generated to something that you tell your children, go and stay with that woman or that man for 2 hours. You will find out, in fact, what those children will come and tell you she did, you will not believe it.
Or he did.
You will not believe it. But that is the truth about life.
Very true.
So that is why when you go into a relationship called marriage, and then you are bringing another person into the world, those children, that your wife and that your children, that your husband and that your children, should be of paramount importance. Because our people say, in translation simply means when you call your house scatter, your neighbor will say, what is the essence of the house? Let's fire now. Let's all burn it off. Is it no work now?
Yeah.
Is it not you that call it scatter house? So why do you want it to stand? Let's finish it so that somebody can come and build a better house.
Right.
So those are some of the things. Infidelity in relationship is not supported by the Bible. It is also not supported morally.
Okay.
And even in the Bible it's not supported.
Right.
It says you have to be a husband of one wife, and that you have to be in control of your household. You have to provide for them. There is no way it says that in the morning you should dress up and go and play draft. There is no way it says in the morning you should dress up and go and play. Go to, some women, for instance, let me even stop there. They will dress up in the morning, leave their husband's house and go to their friend's house and go and join the woman there to prepare food for the husband of that one who has gone to work. Meanwhile, her own husband too went to work. She won't stay in the house. No, let's say it.
Yeah.
She won't stay in the house to prepare food. She will go to her friend's house and then prepare food for the husband of that her friend. And then by the time the man comes back and enters, she will find out that this other woman that she even visited will pretend as if this her husband is a god. Will tell her, no, she'll come. My husband is back. Let's go. Let's stand up. Let's do this. Let's rush and prepare food. What about your own husband? That's your husband. He said, don't mind the useless man. But this other man, if you go and look, maybe that husband that is calling useless man is even earning, standing better than the one that she's going to make the house to worship. So please, when you get married, separate yourself from that former relationship and face your own relationship, so that you bring up your children in the fear of God. And your husband, like if we go to Proverbs chapter 31, there are a list of things that they say a wife should do. They say that she's always at home preparing the husband and children to look good before the public. And that at the end of the day, when the praises come, it will go to her. Say, oh, look at the husband of that woman. Look at the children of that woman. Not when you are a slave queen. In fact, there was a very particular case, like the one that we call phone violence. This woman was in the house, was chatting with the phone until the son now went to the toilet, the WC. It's serious matter. Put his face under the WC, and then he stayed there until he died. The woman was still fiddling with the phone. The son died there. So all these things are signs and forms of domestic violence. When you have a child, know that the child between the ages of 1 and 10 is a danger.
Okay.
You have to take care of that child.
Yeah.
And the slightest opportunity, that child can kill himself. So that does not bring sorrow to your home. So these are the little things I have to.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So it's not only the man, the women too.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
of
Yes,
course.
yeah.
I don't even want to, go into gender base. You know,
Yes.
I actually, based on what you say, I think there is a story I read that a lady is always fond of going to visit her friends since she got married. Every
Yes.
time she's going to
Yes.
spend time with her friend.
Uh-huh.
Until one day, the man married her friend and brought the friend to the house. And so
Yes.
since he always
Who's
fond of
going
going
Going there,
let
let
me
her
bring your
come.
friend.
Let
and let the both of them stay together, and it didn't go well with
no,
the
it
wife.
won't go well.
So yes, anyways, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue from where we stopped. Don't go away. We are still talking about curbing domestic violence and, of course, restoring family values. We shall be right back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying on. This is Regnum Continuous Legal Education. Just in case you're joining us for the first time, my name remains Joy Dambo, and of course we are discussing curbing domestic violence and the restoration of family values as our topic of discourse. And we've treated all the causes of domestic violence. We've also talked about the consequences of domestic violence. Now, after talking about the consequences, why not we go and check and look at the preventions, all the traumas, all the premature death, everything that's been going on. How do we stop all these things? Let's go into that and let's hear what we have, what the legal practitioners have for us, how we can, prevent all this domestic violence from occurring. So, Barrister Kenneth, the stage is yours again.
Is that right? Yeah. There are some strategies to promote healthy, respectful, and non-violent relationships. And then these strategies include developing programs that teach young people.
Okay.
In all these things, once you handle the young age, the teenage age, it goes a long way. Teach young people healthy relationships, such as communication. We talked about communication, bad communication, effective management of feelings, and problem solving skills. Once you can do that, a woman can come in or a man can come in, anger you, the way you react. For instance, they tell you, oh, look at your husband there. You don't run out. You wait for him to come back home. And then ask him, who was that woman? You see, it's a problem-solving skill. Maybe running out there, maybe a machine or motor could have hit you, but because you're at home, that will not happen.
Okay.
Another one is making proper choice of a partner.
Okay.
You understand? Making proper choice of a partner in dating. When dating, make proper choice. In fact, I always say, bring somebody that will compliment you and not somebody that will always oppose you. So once you bring somebody that always is opposing you, please stop that relationship.
Okay.
Now, love and tolerate people. Nobody is perfect.
Okay.
The only perfect person is God. Now we
Love
look
and
at
tolerate.
respect religious teachings and godliness, and then promote gender equality. That domination and the man of the house, I can't sweep, let it go, let it die. Once you see your woman under stress, your wife under stress, you are bound to assist her to sweep. If it is to hold the child for her to cook, hold the child. It's your child. Let her cook food. So by so doing, you assist her, and there will be more cohesiveness, more love in the family. Another point we have to talk about is resolution of differences by dialogue, and then obtaining each other's consent.
Okay.
You know, you can be in the house and then the man just comes back with a car. He didn't even tell the wife going to buy a car. The wife will not be happy.
Yeah.
The man can also be in the house and the wife has gone to the church without preparing his meal. It's something that will make the man angry, so you stop it.
Okay.
Yes. Then another thing is engage in productive activities. Avoid bad company. Walk away from abusive relationships. Avoid pornography and sexual violence. Now, availability of support systems and services and counseling. If you see yourself running into that problem, seek counseling.
Okay.
Bring your husband.
There is a question I would have loved to ask.
No, ask. Go on. We have time.
Hey,
Go on.
you made mention of avoid pornography. How
Yes.
does pornography, triggers violence?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does. It does trigger violence. Because the way one of the ways it triggers violence, for instance, if it is a man, if he has watched the pornography and then maybe has satisfied himself sexually, maybe by the time the wife wants, remember what Corinthians say, 7:3-5, he said your body is that of the man and that of the hand. Then the woman now wants the man, or the woman now wants the man, and he said, I'm tired, I don't have time, because he has already finished his own.
Okay.
So it's a source of violence, and the man will start feeling, what am I doing with this man? Let me look for you, understand? Or maybe the man come and ask for food, and he say, what is food good for in your body? And then the woman will say, are you talking to me? Or the man will say, are you talking to me? And then they will start fighting.
Okay.
It brings violence.
All right, thank you.
Yes, then helping victims. By the time you find out that there are people that are into domestic violence, you help them build self-esteem and self-confidence. Another way is to arrest and prosecute offenders. And then this prosecution must go with proper media publicity, so that people that, you understand, by the time they hear that they have locked up one Okun Etemakwan as a result of family violence, maybe the other man that wanted to hit the wife, in fact, he was planning to come back and hit, will say, Bego, I can hit this woman now, and then she will run and report, they will come and arrest me. So it goes a long way. Now there's the establishment and empowerment of family courts. I'm sure most of the states have this. There's a family court, so that this case, instead of taking it to the regular court to disgrace yourself, they can actually go to the family court. Then another point is invite God to take over. Invite God into your family, take over the affairs of your family.
Okay.
Yes. Now, parents, please, to avoid family violence, domestic violence, have only the number of children you can cater for. Some people will say, children are God gifts. They have 10, they have 15. At the end of the day, they will be competing among themselves. You see families fighting because the man has only one house and the first one wants to take over the one room that the man has, and the other people say we are all children of the family, and the fight will start until they will go and kill themselves. So please, procreate the number that you can cater for. Now we talked about wives submitting and husbands loving. We talked about parents teaching their children the ways of God. Some parents stay in the workplace from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the night. In fact, you might find out that some of the children don't even know their father or their mother, because by 5 o'clock they have gone to work, like a place in Lagos. 5 o'clock they have gone to work, they are coming back by 11. The children have slept. Please create time to stay with your children. It will help you. Then religious leaders have a role to play. religious leaders, please dig deep into the Bible and bring what God actually tells you should be the portion of the family and teach it to the family while you are wedding them, while they come to church. You know, upgrade the family morally by the word of God.
Yeah.
Because it had come to a point that in some churches all they're talking about is offering and tithe and offering. They forget about the family values, those things that kept the family. You know what used to happen then was that it was the church that was the mission, that had the school. It was the church that had the school, and then if the child misbehaved in the school, they will bring him out on Sunday before the parents. They will call the father, they call the mother, they will let the child and then flog him 24 before the entire church. But today you find parents going to fight the teachers for beating their children.
So would you encourage that pattern of discipline?
That is what I'm saying. That's because the church is not doing their job. Okay. You understand? The church is not doing their job again. You go to so many preaching today. Is how you can become 10 billionaire overnight. How you can, outweigh Bill Gates and be richer than Bill Gates. Nobody's now not talking about how the family should be in peace. Right. So that's why we were talking about the religious leaders. Now go back to that traditional duty of admonishing the family morally, so that the wife will listen to the husband, and then the husband will love the wife, and then take care of their children together.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Pastor
Yes.
Kenneth. Okay. Anyways, I would also like, because since we are talking about, because basically domestic violence is all about family.
Yes.
So now I would like us to go into the family values. The family values, how we can, what is family value all about? Let's just say it from you, Barrister Enemy.
Okay, thank you very much once again. Okay, so basically when you're talking about values,
Yeah.
what exactly come to mind? Because in every institution, in every forum, in every organization, there are basically principles, there are basically rules, there are basically guidelines that help them to fulfill their mandate in that institution, or fulfill their purpose in that organization. And as we've been already made to understand that marriage is more or less an institution of both parties, not just marriage, relationships, families. It's more or less like an institution, if you like. And for there to be a coordinated institution, for there to be a coordinated organization, there must be guidelines, there must be rules, there must be principles, there must be values, there must be beliefs that help them to set a standard in their homes, in their institution, in their organization, if you like, or so to speak. So basically, what is family values? Family values is what you and I believe to be right or wrong.
Okay.
Yes, because as you are seated, as I am seated, I know what is basically right, and I also know you and I know basically what is right and what is basically wrong. So if we set out to set this standard, to set this belief, to have it, inculcated into our heads, to know that this is, obviously this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing not to do. And this will help us shape our behaviors in those relationships, in our families, wherever. It will shape our attitude, it will shape our character, it will shape our behavior. You understand? Because when what you are made to understand that is right, you will go on doing it. And what you are to avoid, I'm sure basically you will avoid it, knowing fully well that you already made to understand that this is the wrong thing. Even already you know that yes, this thing that I'm about to do is wrong. It's going to cause my family pain, it's going to cause them injury, it's going to cause them this or that, and maybe probably a negative effect at the end of the day. So basically what is considered as family value is the do's and don'ts. To put it just to simply put, is the do's and don'ts. And in every home, I'm sure we have, basically what we are permitted to do, and basically what we are not permitted to do. And as Barrister Kenneth had rightly stated, as a man, you go to your work. When you are done, from the office, you come back home. You don't, step out, and that's when you remember you have some slave queens out there. You remember that you have one party you are supposed to attend, or you remember that you have, in everything you about to do, communicate with your wife. I believe if you marry an understandable wife, she's definitely going to understand that, okay, after office, I'm going to so place, and after so place, I'm heading to this place before I come back home.
Yeah.
But sometimes the men blank out their wives. Their wives are just back home, or their family members, their children, because this thing we are talking about is not just restricted to the marriage household. It's also like generally families and whatever relationship that you find yourself. A close relationship, so to speak. So you have to communicate. And as the woman as well, if you're going to leave the office and go somewhere, you let your man at home know that this is where you're going to before getting back home, because some of these things are just little issues that may arise at the end of the day, and this whole violence thing sets into place or sets into the picture. But to avoid all these things, you are able to imbibe by the rules, by the values, by the beliefs, what you're supposed to do and what you ought not to do. And it will save us the stress of having run around here and there. So I think basically family values, that is just what it is. And if you are able to maintain these family values and be consistent in it, I think it will salvage some certain situations when there arises. Consistently. Not that today you are doing this and the next moment when your husband or your wife pull out his or her eyes and you are doing something else. So I think consistency matters when it comes to family values. And then having know this, you also have to extend it to teaching your children, because they also have to be made aware of what they are to do and what they ought not to do. From school, they believe that after school they are supposed to come back home and do the assignments, ensure that they get their siesta, get up again and read their books and all of that. You have to set this pace, because if you don't set this pace at the foundation, you are likely to have problems at the end of the day. But once this is rightly stated and you go in line with it, I don't think you would have any problem at the end of the day. So we have a family coming together, working together and agreeing together, because when everybody pours their saliva into one container, I think is best than to this one pours it here, this one pours it there, and everywhere is just scattered. But when you pour your saliva into one container, I think that is the right step in a good and perfect direction. So please, viewers out there, try as much as you can. If you don't have any principles, if you don't have any rules of your values, anything that is supposed to set you right in your relationship, I think you have to start now and do that. Set things right, set rules, set the do's and don'ts, so that you walk in line and avoid finding yourself in a difficult situation that would arise with issues that are not supposed to arise. So that is it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Barista. Yes, if you are listening, I think I was really paying attention. So she was more explaining in details all the family values. I think the way Barista Kenneth is looking at me is as if he has something to add.
Yes, I have.
But
I have something
but
to.
anyways, we are actually working with time, because I wanted
No,
to.
you have to allow me to say this thing. Otherwise, it becomes. This one is the domestic violence. If you don't allow me to say something.
It's no. This is not domestic violence. We are setting principles here. It's principles.
This one is domestic violence. So
it's principles.
You people have started.
So from what NDP said, she talked about communication in family values is very, very important. These are like basically the values that we should observe in our families: communication, consistency, principles. Most of us don't have principles. Very important.
In my own case, I only wanted to say that God is an orderly person.
Yes.
And now the orderliness and the ordinariness of God was very clear in the Garden of Eden. He told the man, dress the garden and keep. The wife was to be a helpmeet. So if you want to you want to restore a family value, I think it's a value chain addition, what we call the value chain.
Okay.
The man stays at the head. The wife comes under the man. Yes. Then you see that God is at the head. God is on top. The man is answerable to God.
Yeah.
And now the wife is under the man, and then the children come. You now realize that when that parenting style is adopted, such that even if the wife wants to disagree with the man, it is not before the children. They have a place they go and disagree, and then come up with a common front. The woman is always keeps herself as subservient to the man. You understand? It will help the female children the most, because they will grow up with this model when they get into marriage. You understand? But the situation, for instance, I'm not saying it happens, but it may, where the woman is the one calling the shots. You find out that most of those girls, if they now go and get married to men that their fathers were the one calling the shots, there is already a domestic violence in waiting. Because the woman will go into the relationship believing that it is the father that used to wash plate for the mother. And this other boy is coming from a background where he knows that it was the mother that used to wash plate for the father. You see the conflict there already.
Okay.
So
they need to know each person's principles.
Yes, where did God give you to do? What is the duty of the children? That will now shape. It is the duty of the children to wash when they grow up, to clean, to prepare vegetable and water leaf for mommy to and assist mommy to cook. They are to respect the father. The father's decision stands. And then if that decision is not working well, the mother and the father will come see how this thing is affecting this child. So that at that point they can, once that parenting style is adhered to, and then there is that consistency of judgment, and then the parents are always there to assist the children. You know that the children that their parents show them homework at home do better in class than the ones that the teacher is handling everything. You understand? They are always out there. The children come back. There is no role model. The only more role model is one cartoon film or one film that does not give glory to God that they have that they can watch. At the end of the day, you don't know those children. You don't know that your wife. There must be time for vacationing. Take a time and go on a vacation. If you have a little break, take your wife out. People will go and sit down, refresh yourself, and discuss. It might not cost you people so much. 6,000 naira may be the hotel bill. You people go to a place where there is swimming pool. You swim, and then people will have relaxed mind to sit down and talk, and then go back home. You see what people can put into that family to lift it up.
Okay, anyways, I would also like you to, since you're talking about also adding your input on the, what would I say, the family values, which we need to, exhibit or show. So I also want you to like tell us how to maintain, because Barrister Enimini has mentioned the key values that we need to observe in a marriage or in a family or in a relationship or in a family. So now, apart from consistency, because I feel like consistency is one of the keys to maintain the values, in a family. Yes. So what other, values, or what other parts or measures should we use to maintain family values?
Thank you very much. You have talked about consistency.
Yes.
Because any decision that is taken in the home that is not consistent. I could remember one of my colleagues. Let me just, I'm answering your question.
Yes.
I could remember one of my colleagues that the children, the mother and the father used to join in beating this child. Once the child does anything wrong, the father and the mother, they will join in beating. They say, spare the child, spoil the rod and spare the child. So the child grew up to a certain level where the mother and the father now had the cause to quarrel before the child. And the child was looking at the two of them like, what's in the man? See these two people. So the child did not say anything. He gradually carried himself and left that place and left them. So they themselves observed that this child has left them. Was not standing to hear what they are saying, was not interested. So later the mother now called the child and said, so your father was doing, I say, you, that two of you used to join in beating me. So what do you want me to say? Maybe it's your time to quarrel. So what I'm trying to say is that spend time together as a family while pursuing individual interests and goals. Let your child know that you don't want him to be the richest man in the world, but that you want him to be respected. Assist each member of the family in the achievement of these set goals. Assist. Don't be, there's time for WAEC to pay WAEC fee, you say there's no money. Meanwhile, you have money to give to a side chick and deceive your family that you are going for outside work when you are still in New York, you are still in Port Harcourt. You go and spend that money on hotel, on some other person and bills. Meanwhile, your child's school fee and WAEC fee has not been paid. Don't do that. Ensure the observance of these set values as parents. You have to observe the children. Even if you are a guardian, you are expected to observe these children and ensure that these values that you have set, that is why there should be consistency between you and your spouse, your wife and husband, so that at any point in time that issue comes up, the standard has already been set. Yes. Then another thing is treat others, both inside and outside the family, with compassion and respect. Because you don't know, the world is round. what goes around comes around, it turns. You understand? There must be that continuity. Maybe at the end of the day, something goes wrong somewhere, and I was living with you as your male servant, and you now find out that I'm now Barrister Kenneth, and you say, oh, he was living with me. Barrister Kenneth, please, I'm sending this boy over to you. He wants to come and start University of Abuja. Please accommodate him until he can get a host. You see the link now.
Yeah.
But if you didn't treat me well, can you say that?
No,
You will just tell the child, in fact, there's no money to go to university, and I can't send you to University of Abuja. I beg, stay at home. You know what you have done. That there's nobody you can approach for help. You know. That is why that child is now suffering as a result of that. Another point is put your best effort towards achieving set goals and teach and encourage your children to do so. And then another point is, I will still talk about avoid bad company and encourage other family members to do so. Bad company is very bad. So many people have died. I could remember there was a guy in Port Harcourt. They went to steal. The guy was, according to him, he said he was not even there. But he used to go and follow them to smoke. So when they were mentioning the people that used to partake in that thing, they mentioned him. He was a student of the University of Port Harcourt. And each time they asked these people, they said this man was part of it. They have been part of us. He's part of our company. And the government took a decision that instead of them to leave these criminals because of this one good person, which the community wrote a letter and said this boy is not a bad boy, they shot the guy. That time, that was when they used to go to this thing, that ground, Azigboro Park, and shoot people. They tied him, shot him because of what? Bad company. When you are in bad company, your academic, everything is stalled. Your name has gone bad. You now have a bad name, that you are not a good person in the society. Share daily expressions of love. Women love that. And observe, as a man, observe your hair, the hairstyle of your wife. I like this, so I love it. You understand? You go a long way. Wife, too, when your man takes a good haircut, let's start from there. You've bobbed your hair. Oh, this is nice. Don't allow, because for some people, not even observing the changes in their body is a sign that you don't care about them, and they treat it as such. So please do that to bring your family. Keep family secrets. We've spoken about that. There are some secrets in the family. Once you let out that secret, let me just say it. Once anybody knows your secret, you don't have respect before that person. The only thing that is keeping God at this level is because what has made him God, he keeps that away from us. By the time we know, we want to outshine him, want to outplace him, even as God. But that is true. So keep your family secret. It's not everything you tell people. Let people be assuming, how did they manage to build that house? Even if you play Bet Naija and win, it's not for you to go and say, no, we play Bet Naija, we won 10 million. No. That house will not have respect. Because by the time you want to talk, you say, no, this house that they play Bet Naija and win and go and build. What did they suffer to build? This Bet Naija money. Who said it? It's you. So please, now ensure that every member of the family is loved, respected, and supported. We have said that. Parents should ensure they procreate only the number of children they can cater for. It's very important. If you know you can cater for 3 children, because at the same time you have dependents, your mother is there. Your father, if the father has not called him to glory, is there. Somebody that wants to also grow and become a man may need your help. It's not for you to now have so much that you cannot cater for.
Okay.
Now, wives, submit to your husbands, like we have said, and husbands, love your wife. Now, parents should also teach the children the ways of God. We have said that, so that when they grow up, they won't depart from it. In fact, for the young man, it is that time that he's a very young person, that you have to guide him in everything that he needs to know. It's not when the child is 20 years, you come and start introducing God to his life. He will not understand you. What he understood was to go to club. You understand? And go and play football on Sundays and do all that. But if you had started from that young age to drag him to the church, from the Sabbath you might see that the child will progress to become a chorister. From a chorister he might progress to become a senior prophet. From senior prophet, Christ ambassador. It goes on like that. He will hold on to that tenaciously. And the result that you get from that is that salvation will definitely come into that house. Because through him, that your family will be saved. You understand?
Yes.
So please, those are some of the ways that you can maintain the family values. It is consistency and support. Once they are consistent, once there is a support, a ring of support in the family. You know that there are some children that they finish primary SS1, and then that textbook, the younger brother cannot take it and read in SS1. They are in SS2. They may have destroyed the book and throw it away. But there are some ways that the family can do. Keep this your book. Your younger brother is coming to read. And then the father keeps the book. By the time, if the government does not change that text, you understand, it might go a long way to help the family from spending that money again on that child. Okay. Thereby reducing the stress, the economic stress. And then one of the other support is support them to become something in life. Support your wife to have a business. Support your husband to do something. Support your child who is of age to start running a little, even if it's to fry granite and sell. That 15 naira might help. Let's assume, for instance, it's a girl child. Let me stop at that point. But then let's assume it's a girl child. And then the child has grown up to the point of puberty where she has to start having menses. And you were not at home. And then she was selling small granite and 750 naira. It might rise up to 500 or 1,000 naira. And you are not at home. And this child observes it, and use this money to purchase that thing rather than going to do something sinister in order to have the money since you are not around. Yes. All these things go to help create the standard in the home that we are talking about.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Very brilliant one. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are actually coming to an end of this program. Just in case you missed out or you're just joining us, feel free to always go back to our YouTube platform. We always have our programs there lining up, and you're going to see it, and you follow up again with all the tips, all the advice. In short, we are talking about domestic violence, the prevention, and how it all started and how it can be stopped, and in short, the total way of getting rid of it entirely. So always do well to go back and watch the program over and over. But we can't just conclude this program without, because this is a religious TV, in as much as we are talking about legal practice and all of that, we can as well, we also want to hear from the aspect of our Holy Father. What is the Father's concern when it has to do with domestic violence? What are the teachings? What has the Father been saying concerning domestic violence? And of course, Father's teachings on, already they have mentioned the family values, but from the Father's aspect, which is why we are here to project the teachings of our Father, I would want to hear, Barrister Nimini, what are the teachings of the Father when it has to do with domestic violence?
Okay, so basically, because I believe...
We've heard from the legal aspect. Let's go, religious now.
Okay, so basically our Father usually, go biblically when he brings out his teachings to us. And I'll also quote from the Bible, and I would please permit me to read it out. Okay. Let's look at the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1 to 8. It reads, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulties, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving God, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power." And then at the tail end it says, "Avoid such people." Okay. So this has basically answered the whole long question. And it's also stated in, if you look at Psalm 11, Proverbs 1 and 3, you would see that God frowns at violence. Yes. Violence is an offense against God and even humanity. So God detests violence. So when you begin to see these signs, like we had already rightly established in our previous, discussion, you would see that we had already mentioned, if these signs start coming up, you take up your internal measures. Yeah. What are these internal measures? Call your spouse, sit your spouse down, try to establish a communication, make either him or her understand that his actions are detestable. Okay. You are not comfortable with his actions, you are not comfortable with certain things that he or she does. And then listen to his or her response. And if his or her response is going to be suitable to you, then it's your choice whether to stay or not. But even at that, you don't just, go away. You don't just walk away like that. If you have exhausted these internal measures and it's not working out, then you take steps to the external measures. And what are the external measures? You call in your family. I mean, your both parents, sit them down, or maybe the senior most male member of the family, or if there is not a male necessarily, maybe the senior most member of the family. It could be a male, it could be a female. And then you have this discussion. And if they still try to settle those causes and it's not working out, then you can take steps to call in your pastor. I mean, that's the church, the religious aspect now. And then if still that is not working, that doesn't suffice, then my dear, you can now take steps to leave, because you have exhausted these measures, all the options, and it's still not working out. Then you walk out. But if you decide to stay, because already God had made it clear, biblically it is already clear, categorically, stay away from such people, avoid them. So if the Bible has made you to be aware, I mean, the Bible has already given you an expo, why not act on it? Why not do what it says? Because I believe the Bible is a holy book. Yes. Is our own holy constitution, is the super book that we all, revert back to. So if the Bible had category, because the Bible speaking to us is God obviously talking to us.
Yes.
And if he has said avoid such people, and then you decide to stay in there after exhausting all those measures, then you are doing yourself more harm than good. So basically, the root, I mean, the root or the bone of contention of this discussion right now is that when it comes to domestic violence, it is an offense against God himself. So if something is an offense against God, the being that created you, what are you still doing there? Not just against God, but against humanity at large. So the best is to take steps, and if you exhaust these measures, it's not working out, then my dear, I think you just have to avoid such person.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Enemini or Emenimini. Yes, and also thank you so much, Barrister Kenneth. Because of time, I would have loved you to also say one or two, but we're already out of time. So next week or next 2 weeks, we will come back again with another juicy and interesting topic. So for now, I just want to thank you so much for your time, for always coming out here, to at least give to our audience what they need to know about legal matters. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
All right, beloved audience, this is where we draw the curtain close for tonight's program. This is Regnum Continuous Legal Education. Just in case you missed out, don't forget, we always have you covered. Go to Starcross TV on YouTube, we say Starcross TV International, and always do a replay of our programs, okay? Thank you so much. I remain Joy Dambo. See you again. Bye for now.